All right, my friends, we're going to go ahead and get started with our Coaches Corner chat today. And we're going to be talking about women's health topics. And for that, I wanted to bring my friend on, Kim. Kim, do you go by Kim or Kimberly?
Kim. My
Okay.
my legal name's Kimberly, but I'm like, no, very much Kim.
Okay. Very much Kim is on with us today. And we're going to talk about our menstrual cycle, a classic sort of like 28-day cycle, and how we can be thinking about optimizing our training and our nutrition around that cycle. Because as we all know, we feel very differently, sometimes like week to week, depending on where we are in our cycle. So Kim is going to kind of break that down for us. Talk about all the things. So I don't want to overstep her, but I just wanted to share that we know each other because we were in the same fitness business coaching group. And so we were able to connect with a lot of awesome health coaches. And I'm just super happy to have you on to share with me and with everyone that I work with.
Yes, and like I already said, thank you so much for having me. I feel like it was an honor that you kind of picked me out of our group and invited me to come do this talk. I love speaking about this stuff. So I'll just give everyone a little bit of my background. I'm a women's hormone health coach. I help women line their hormone health and also connect with their feminine and sexual energy. So for some of my friends call me the womb witch because I really work with connecting with the womb. And what I'm going to talk about today is cycle syncing, and that's a lot of connecting how you are feeling. And sometimes it literally is just taking a moment to check in with yourself and be like, what do I need today? And as you start to track your cycle and how you're feeling, it becomes automatic. And I'll probably share some examples about myself personally as I go through the presentation. But also, with the work that I do, I help women with their fertility. I help women with period problems, whether it's horrible PMS, cramps, moodiness. I had someone, thankfully, she was no longer suicidal when she worked with me, but she was extreme moodiness connected to the PMS. There was a hormone imbalance. So we looked at the emotional side, we looked at nutrition, all encompassing. I also do come from a background of personal training myself. My undergrad is phys ed and sports performance, and I used to compete in the bodybuilding world. So I do have, quite a bit of knowledge in that. Just not really my absolute forte at this point in my life. So I really love talking about the hormones. So today we are going to, like I said, talk about cycle syncing. There is nutrition stuff in the presentation. I just thought it'll be great information for all of you to have, but I know this is the fitness group, so I will kind of hone in a little bit more on the fitness side of things. Were you able to put me as a co-host now? Let's see.
Yeah, you should be able to share your screen. I made you the host.
Services. I
Can
don't
you
see.
go to the bottom where the green like share screen thing is?
Oh, there we go. Yes. Okay. Let's see. Yes, there. Perfect. Got
Okay.
it. Share. All right. So here we are. So cycle syncing, optimizing your period to maximize your productivity and health and your training. And actually, one thing that I have created, and you can get it on Amazon, it's called the Womb Wisdom Journal. And through this journal, it helps you learn to connect to your cycles. So it's only about 5 pages of actual reading, and then it takes you through 3 months of your menstrual cycle so that you get to really see how your energy shifts throughout your cycle. So I have specific prompt questions for every single day, and then as you hit each phase of your cycle, there is the follicular phase, the ovulation, luteal phase, and then your menstruation. So, just a little bit of why you may be feeling the way you're feeling as you move through your cycle. Us women, we're not like men, we're not straight, we're not linear. We have ebbs and flows in our energy, and that is because our hormones shift throughout our month. And so, I will start with our menstrual phase. This is day one of your cycle, the first day of a full period. So, if you're like spotting, if you start spotting, say, a little bit at night, and you maybe just have to wear like a thin pad. That I wouldn't count that as day one. That's still like day 29 of your last full cycle. And then if you wake up the next morning and you have a full bleed, that is day one of your cycle. And then you count forward day 2, 3, 4, 5 until you get your next period. I know a lot of times, especially when you're following those apps, it's a 28-day cycle. It does not have to be a perfect 28-day cycle. A healthy cycle is anywhere between 26 to about 34 days. If you're consistently less than 26 or consistently more than 34 days, then I would suggest looking into it, because that is a sign of a hormone imbalance. It could be different ones depending what you are experiencing. But with that also being said, if you have one cycle and you're completely off, like it's a little bit longer, a 35-day cycle, don't stress about it. Just reflect what's changed that month and maybe what you get to change. So in our menstrual phase, this is when our hormones are at our lowest. So our main hormones that I'm speaking about are your estrogen, your progesterone, and your testosterone. They are all at their lowest. So if you are feeling like you have less energy, that is to be expected, and honor that. There is a saying, how you bleed is how your next cycle is going to be. So if you are trying to push through and do all those hard workouts that Rachel's giving you, even though you're dragging your ass, it could just build up over time. So I know Rachel doesn't know where everyone is in their cycle, but that's where you get to check in with yourself and be like, you know what, I maybe can't do this today. Can I move this more intense workout to 5 days later when I'm moving into my follicular phase? So outside of actual training, this is a time where we get to be more reflective, and we actually are most connected to ourselves and, I'll say, source. So if you may notice that if you have like dreams, we tend to be more in our dream state during this time. If you have a chance, journal in the morning and see what this dream may be telling you, because we are a little bit more, like I said, connected during our menstrual time. And I should also say our menstrual phase is anywhere between 1 to 7 days. If you're consistently having periods longer than 7 days, that could be often a sign of higher estrogen. If this happens one cycle, don't stress about it, but if it's continually happening, then something to look into. So
Hey,
because
Kim, do you mind if we interject if we have a question about something that you're on?
Sure. I'm
Okay.
like, can I see? I can't really see if your hand's up with my screens, but
Since there's only just a few of us, I would just say maybe like unmute if you have a question. But I had a question about your menstrual phase and just like training in general. Is it true that you might be like more sore or just more inclined to be sore and like feel all the things when you're menstruating, like when you're in that phase?
yeah, because you are. I'm like, how to explain it? Because your hormones are at their lowest, especially if you're doing a high intensity workout, like something, or even lifting super heavy, your body actually doesn't have as much energy to support that. Like your testosterone's down here instead of here, right? So you could actually be causing more inflammation in your body, because your body's just looking at it as, oh, this is more stress on my body. It doesn't realize that it's a workout and it's something good for you. It's just more work on your body, right? So if you have more of this inflammation in your body, you are going to feel more sore. And with that, I mean, you might not be recovering as quick too, especially if you're not eating to support your body with that. And what I also do want to add with that is it can be a counterbalance if you are trying to push through those more intense workouts during this time, because your hormones are lower and it could be registering in your body as stress. Rachel, you may have spoke on this before, but those higher level of cortisol is then going to cause you to hold on to your body fat instead of you burning that, right? So what I would suggest during this time is, if you still want to move, like, don't get me wrong, sometimes I still want to do something. So go for a long walk outside is great. If you want to walk on the treadmill, put in a bit of an incline, like that low intensity cardio. You could go to a Pilates class or go to yoga. especially if you are experiencing like menstrual cramps. Maybe going to a yoga class where you can do some deep breath work, connect with yourself, do a little bit of stretching with that could be beneficial as well. Does that help? All right.
Yes, very much. Thank you.
Yeah, and if you the other two ladies, if you have any questions, just pop on, no problem. Um, and then, like I said, because I'm not going to talk too much into nutrition, but I think it is beneficial and it'll help with your recovery and your training. So because you are bleeding during this time, there is a chance that you're losing some iron, especially if you have heavier periods. So eating foods that are going to support that blood loss, so like red meats. I know there's like, some talk, don't eat too much red meat, but if there's a time of month you're going to eat red meat, I would suggest this. So some like good grass-fed or organic lean ground beef, lentils, quinoa, beans, anything like that is going to be helpful to support not only healthy proteins in the body, but also it's going to help with replenishing any iron that you may be losing. Now, I get it too. Does anyone get sugar cravings? You want some of those sweet and salty foods during this time. So, I mean, dark chocolate actually is good for you. I would suggest anything 70% and higher with cacao. And the reason being is because it is very high in magnesium. So any of you ladies that are experiencing that PMS, especially like the moodiness, it could be due to lower magnesium. They say 90% of our population is deficient in magnesium. So, and especially during this time and in our luteal phase, you will notice this. So yeah, make it a nice hot chocolate or a dessert, with some cacao in it is really good for you. If you are experiencing cramps or bloating, adding good spices, turmeric, ginger into your soups, or if you're making like a stir fry of some sort, that's always good. I was going to say something along that. I kind of lost my train of thought there for a moment. Let me come back to it if it comes to me. I was talking. I'll come back to it. So moving forward, like I said, your period is from about days 1 through 7. Might be a little bit less. I'm about 5 days. But as you're getting to the tail end, you're moving into your follicular phase. This is equivalent to springtime. So you may notice like even day 3, 4 of your period, your energy shifts. You kind of go from like, oh, I don't want to feel like being around anybody or doing anything to, okay, I'm feeling that energy coming back. And that is because your estrogen is starting to rise up. Your estrogen is your building hormone. It builds your uterus in preparation for ovulation. And this is where ovulation, so if you were trying to conceive. This estrogen also helps with our joints. Kind of going back to you saying that being a little bit more sore. When your estrogen is lower, estrogen makes us juicy outside of from a sexual perspective, but also, like I said, for our joints. So we're not as lubed up, if you want to say, our joints during our period. So that could also play into being sore. So during this time, estrogen's rising. This is a time to, and testosterone's like making its way up as well. This is a time that you're going to start, doing more intense workouts again. Not super intense, but, say like a cardio dance. You could do any hiking, start doing your spin classes. Kettlebell is good. I'd probably say save the real explosive stuff to ovulation, so a few days later. And this is a great time to try anything new. So if Rachel's giving some like newer workouts or something, this is a great time to try those out. We are in our masculine energy during this time, so we have more patience and we're in our creative state. So this is a good time to, like I said, just to try those new workouts as well. This slide is just talking about outside of working out, like if you're in your working with your family or for work, your sharpness, reasoning. So I'm not going to get too much into that. That's something that you guys get to read on your own. Moving forward, just to speak a little bit more. So like I was saying, this is a time to start bringing in those higher intensity workouts, spin, jump rope, cardio dance, any of that kind of stuff. If you had if you do have those heavier periods, you can continue to have those iron-rich foods during this time, because that's gonna, help you replenish that iron that you potentially had lost, and especially if you still are just feeling a little bit more tired and sluggish. Also, very important during this time is because that estrogen is rising. We want to eat foods that are going to help us metabolize that estrogen as well and support our bodies. So leafy greens are great. Your collard greens, kale, dandelion, any of those type of in that family of food, flaxseed, and anything rich in fibers. So our follicular phase is going to run from the end of your period, about days 5 through 7, all the way up until about day 13 to 15. And I give a ballpark range because I'm going to say this again, we aren't on a perfect 28-day cycle, all of us. We all have our own cycles. So that's why it's really great to start tracking your own, because you'll start to see these shifts and just how your energy is. I'll use myself as an example, especially because I'm going to hold off on that example when I get to luteal phase. So next is ovulation. Ovulation is our summertime. This is usually when, just in general, you feel like you're on top of the world. Your energy is super high. You may be feeling super sexy. You may be feeling, like you're super muscular and lean and not bloated. And this is because your estrogen's at its highest, testosterone's at its peak. I know we hear so much about like testosterone being, more of a male hormone, but testosterone is super important for us females as well. And believe it or not, testosterone is like more prominent in our body than our estrogen and progesterone. It's just, compared to men, our estrogen and progesterone are more prominent in the female body compared to male. So I think that's why you hear so much talk about that and not so much about testosterone. But testosterone is super important. Like, it helps, and I talk about it in here, it helps with our confidence, it helps with our motivation, and it is super important for your training. So this is the time that you want to be doing your most intense workouts, and this is the time where you are going to build your muscle. So making sure that just in general, making sure, and I'm sure Rachel's talked about this, eating your healthy fats, your healthy proteins. If you really are trying to build muscle, I'm probably going to say everyone should be eating at least 100 grams of protein. It depends on your weight, but I'm only 5 feet, and when I'm in building time, I'm like 110, 120. So that's why I'm saying I feel like most people should be around 100 grams. And with that being said, I don't know if Rachel's talked about that. It's really important with our hormones throughout the entire month is to make sure that you're having that healthy protein with all your meals and fats too. That's going to help stabilize your blood sugars, and that's just going to help you throughout your month with your energy levels, with your training, and even just with your hormones to help keep your cycle just flowing very nicely. So in regards to your training, this is the best time to do your anything HIIT, high intensity, your heaviest lifting. If you're trying to do your 1 max reps, this is the time that you want to do that. I know I said spin in the follicular, but this is also a good time that you could start doing spin class, like continue with the spin classes. Any of that type of stuff that is taking the most energy that you really need. Because this is when your estrogen peaks, we want to really make sure that we metabolize all that estrogen, because I'm sure a lot of you have heard of estrogen dominance, which is becoming more and more common. I could probably do a whole presentation on that alone, but we want to make sure that we metabolize that so that when we get onto the other side into our next phase, luteal phase, so we're not getting hit with that PMS. So eating foods that are going to help metabolize that estrogen. I already was talking about the flaxseed in the follicular phase. Keep adding that in. But any of your cruciferous vegetables, so cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, any of your collard greens, any of those type of foods in that family are really good to help metabolize your estrogen. So adding that in. This is all the time of our month that we're in summer. So think of summer foods. Like you tend to see a lot of those light salads with berries in them. It's the same thing with our cycle. So eating like nutrient dense foods, your salads, berries, of course, adding in your protein and maybe some avocado into it, seeds to help with that through this phase. And then lastly, and I'll say, I should add this too, because I didn't say, our ovulation is, I'll say, between 13 to 17 days, 13 to 17. It could be 14 to 16. But once again, I'm just giving a little bit of a ballpark because everybody's cycle is a little bit different. Did you have a question, Rachel?
I did. I was just going to say, is your ovulation like one day? Because you always hear about there's like 48 hours, or you're fertile for like 24 hours. So we're talking about like one day, or would, yeah. So you answered it. It was like 3, 4 days where you're
Yeah,
queen of everything.
but because you'll feel that energy. It's like a build up. But to answer your question, us women ourselves, without the men, we are actually only fertile for one day, 24 hours. Really, it's only about like 12 to 18 hours because that's when the egg is released. So that's when we actually ovulate. And I know this has nothing to do with fitness, but just good information to know. The male sperm lives in us for up to 5 days. So that's why our fertile window is a little bit bigger. So, say if you had sex on day 10 and you ovulate on day 14, you could still get pregnant. So that's why the fertile window is. But you're still having that climb, but the peak is when the egg is actually released. So you will get that ovulatory energy for about a good 4 days.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. So our luteal phase is the last phase I'm going to talk about, and it's a bit of a longer phase, and within it, it kind of has two phases. So the luteal phase will run anywhere from about day 16, 17 until you get your next period. So especially if you do have a longer cycle, that luteal phase, you may notice, could be a little bit longer. But with saying that, in the first half of the luteal phase, you still have a little bit of that higher energy. So, maybe days 7 through 20, 21, you have that higher energy. So that is okay if you're still doing like the higher intensity workouts. But this is a good time to do your strength training. So especially if you're doing like strength training more from an endurance perspective, not as higher weights, like actual weight, but higher reps, that this is a good time to be adding that in. Here again, this is a little bit more of the energetic side that I had put together for this other presentation I did. I think it's just good information that you guys could look at later. I'm not going to talk about it too much today. But so going back into the actual strength training, and the reason why is because we peaked at ovulation, so estrogen and testosterone are at their peak. And then once we ovulate, if we don't conceive, then our estrogen in a healthy cycle is going to begin to drop. Same with our testosterone. So that energy is going to start to drop. Those hormones that are going to support our muscle building and our ability to metabolize our food and support our body through our workouts is going to begin to drop. During this phase, our progesterone in a healthy cycle will rise. And why I say in a healthy cycle, because I mentioned estrogen dominance, which is very common. So two things happen with estrogen dominance. Either the estrogen stays high instead of dropping, or the estrogen to progesterone ratio is imbalanced and the estrogen's higher. So maybe the estrogen drops a little bit, but the progesterone is just so low, which is very common in women, that it's just not climbing. So it's that estrogen dominance still. With that is when you're going to notice that you're going to have more PMS, so the more of that bloating, moodiness, cramps, headaches, tender boobs, all those things that make us uncomfortable about week 3, week 3.5. So with that is considered like our second half of the luteal phase, that day 22 until our next period. So this is time we get to slow down again. Maybe do a bar class, maybe you get into another Pilates class, but start to ease off these real intense workouts. And I'm not sure, Rachel, how do you give out your workouts? Are they every week or every couple days?
Oh, we're just in a grind 24/7. We're just grinding So we get new workouts every month, and then the first week is kind of like the test the waters type of week where we're not going super hard, but some people do anyways. And then for like 4 weeks, our strength workouts we repeat so that we're trying to progressively like overload. And at the end of the month or at the end of those 4 weeks, we're trying to like lift as heavy as we can. And then that's 2 times a week. And then the other 2 days of the week is just conditioning workouts. So those can be like really difficult or just kind of difficult. But I always try to tell people like, check in with yourself. If this is a day where you just check the box and you don't go super hard, cool. And so basically that's part of me saying like, if you're feeling like garbage because hormonally, X, Y, and Z is going on, give yourself permission to just like chill. I mean, if you showed up to the workout, kudos. You're already here, do something, but you don't have to like push it every single time. But yeah, we don't really have like deload weeks. But if there was a deload week, it would be the first week when we're just kind of like testing out the new movements and the new reps and just kind of seeing how we feel with everything.
Okay. And it's always live or they're recorded?
Both. So they can do them
Oh,
live, and if they're not live, they can have access to the recordings.
recording. Okay. So, I mean, what I would suggest with that, if this is the day that Rachel's rolling out the real explosive heavy lifting and you're like, this is the second day of my period and I feel like crap, just make that your rest day and then do the recording 3 4 days or like 4 days later, like just shift it. And like Rachel already said, it's just really checking in with yourself. So going back to the journal that I was talking about earlier, the Womb Wisdom Journal, one of the questions in it every single day is, what does my womb need physically, mentally, and emotionally? So what I do myself, and when I do sessions with my clients, or if I'm doing talks like this, literally I just say, put your hands on your womb. So that's that place right below your belly button, about 3 fingers below your belly button, and just take a couple rounds of breath. Inhale through the front side of your body, exhale, feel the breath coming down the back. That's called cosmic breathing. And just asking yourself, literally, and asking your womb, what do I need? And you may get a download in your head, a voice. You may get some sensation in your body. You may feel like that pain that you've been kind of brushing off may kind of like speak a little louder to you. You may really feel that tiredness. Just checking in, and just you could kind of gauge how your day's going to be, and what workout you should do. The other thing I always say to my clients is with your workouts, to check in how you feel 2 hours later, how you feel the next day. And if you're constantly tired, then you're training too hard or you're not eating enough. That's usually how I'm saying. So that's the other thing that you could kind of gauge with your cycle. But you really start to pick up how your energy, and I said I was going to share one like little personal story about it. So for myself, remember I said ovulation ends about day 16, 17, and then we have 2 phases to our luteal phase. And day 19 or 20 for me in the morning, no matter what's going on, I'm just so irritable. It's either 19 or 20. And this is the crossover day. So you're moving, I'm moving out of that high energy of ovulation, and it's time for me to start slowing down and preparing, going into autumn, preparing for my luteal phase and then my period. And I think because I am pretty social, and I like that high energy. When I have to switch gears down, it makes me irritated in the morning. So I know in the morning not to kind of keep my mornings open. So that's just an example how you really connect it. And for somebody else, it could be days 27, day 26 and 27. I just feel like I have zero energy. So those you could pick as a rest day or just go for a walk. So I usually say it takes about 2 to 3 months for you to really like just get at least 2 months so you can see a pattern, but usually at least 3 months to really start to pick up these patterns.
Kim, I have a question for you.
Of course.
How, if at all, does this apply to people who don't have periods? And not for menopausal reasons, but like for an IUD or on the pill, like skipping the sugar pill, just kind of people who intentionally don't have periods. Do we still have
Yeah.
these phases, or are we always in one of the phases?
So that is a really good question. So I have two answers to that. Technically, how do I want to answer? Okay, okay. Us women, we are blessed and we have that power that we are connected to Mother Earth and the moon. So if you are menopausal or you had a hysterectomy and you had to go into early menopause, we are still connected to a cycle. We're connected to the moon cycle. So it may take, maybe 4 or 5 months for us to really connect to it. The new moon is equivalent to our menstrual phase, our bleed. The full moon, that's when the earth is most fertile, right? Because the moon has the light shining down the earth. That's our ovulation phase. So you could connect to that. It may take a little bit longer. Now the pill, that's a whole other thing, and that's a really good question. Unfortunately, with the pill, what happens is it takes away the ebbs and flows that us women naturally have. And how I kind of like, you think of a heart rate monitor, right? How it goes like this. And then if someone passes away, it runs flat. That's kind of what happens to our hormones. So if you are on the pill, you kind of lose that beauty of that peak, especially during ovulation. So you might not notice that surge of energy. So with that, you'll still have your own pattern, but you might not notice such a significant shift because you're not getting those ebbs and flows that a woman would naturally have when she's on her regular, like on a normal cycle without any hormones in it. The other thing I just want to add too, and this does, because it does drop your testosterone, for some women, they are really sensitive to it. And it could like, if you notice it, you have zero motivation and you just don't want to do anything, it could be because it really impacts, it has dropped your testosterone quite a bit. That too, I could have a whole other topic on, but that is a really good question.
To
And
follow up,
okay.
sorry,
No, I was just
you
going to
want to
say
finish?
one other thing with that, and I'll pass my information along to Rachel. I always say this. So I was on birth control too for 14 years before, and for hormonal acne at age 15. So no shame on anyone that's on birth control. But I always just ask people now, why are you on it? I know there's like the fear of pregnancy, especially what's happening here in the States. But if it's for a hormonal balance, I could say confidently there are ways to address it without birth control. And I know our doctors don't say that to us. So if you have any questions, anyone watching this recording, feel free to reach out.
To follow up, if you are in menopause or menopause has happened and whatever, like you just don't have a 28-day cycle, are you still having hormonal fluctuations? Do they just fall into like different categories than the 4 that we talked about? Do you just have all the energy all the time?
Well, you're a little bit, I'm going to say I'm going to rewind a little bit first because there's going to be the perimenopause. Perimenopause, you're still getting your period, but your hormones might be a little bit more like this. Like you're going to have instead of like a nice like this, you're going to go up and down. And that's just because your cycles are going longer and shorter and your body's going through shifts. So if anyone's in that phase, it may just be paying a little bit more attention. In menopause, like I said, your body itself is no longer going through the actual shifts in hormones, and your estrogen is really dropped. Like that's the big thing because the ovaries are no longer producing eggs. So you seize that cycle. But like I said, connecting with the moon and stuff, you'll still notice the shifts, but it won't be as significant. And especially and testosterone drops too. So if there are any women in your group that are in perimenopause and menopause especially, I don't know how much cardio you give them, but like those long crazy cardio sessions, like you don't need to do that, because there again it puts a lot of stress on the body. So what's optimal, for women, I'll say 40 plus, is the weight training, the kettlebells that you're doing with Rachel, like that's really beneficial for you. And then I could go into a lot of nutrition and stress management stuff too, like that's really important. But the big thing is to not really get those cortisol levels up here, because it's registering in your body as stress, and that's going to have you hold on to fat. So if you talk to a lot of women 40 plus, it's like, oh, I got all this belly fat and I can't get rid of it. Why is this happening? So with that, a lot of it is listening to your body and sticking to weight training mostly. From a working perspective. There's so many other things to look at, but for this conversation, from a workout perspective, that's what you want to be looking at.
I'm not super like woo-woo-y. I'm more just kind of like pragmatic and no bullshit. And so I'm wondering, like, I'm not trying to get pregnant. What other reason would there be for me to like connect to my womb? Like, I'm not thinking about my womb ever. I'm thinking about a lot of other things, but like, tell me why if I'm not doing that, like, why should I be? Is it to connect to my energy that's like coming from my hormones, coming from my womb? Like, educate me, please. I'm very genuinely curious.
So our womb tells us so much outside of, working out or, like you said, trying to get pregnant. This is one I say in luteal phase. I'll use this for example. If you are getting extremely angry, moody, picking fights with your partner, can't stand your coworker, outside of the hormonal shift, this is the time that we are the bullshit detectors, and we are very connected to our intuition. So I always say, like, how else are you not expressing yourself, your true desires? Is there something that you're not doing to bring pleasure into your life, to fill your cup? Are you being extra irritable because this job is no longer serving you, but you're just too scared to let go, or you're just feeling comfortable? Could be the same thing with a relationship. Or is it just something that your partner's been doing that you wanted to have a conversation about, but you're just putting it off and it irritates you month after month? Don't have the conversation, then wait till after your period, because that's when you won't yell at them. You'll be more clear-minded to have an actual conversation. But that's just using an example of it. So it's just being really in tune with how you're feeling overall. So I'll use myself as an example again. I went out with the guy I'm dating. We went out 3 nights this weekend. I don't drink that much, but we drink every night, and he's a night owl. And I stayed up till 2 a.m, 3 nights in a row. Totally not me. I had to take Advil, and I got my period this weekend. I had to take Advil. I just had surgery, Rachel, I think I went for oral surgery. I didn't even take Advil after my surgery, but that's how bad my menstrual cramps were. So I was like, I had to think back. I was like, what is the shift? And I know what it was. I had alcohol. Alcohol actually clogs up our liver, and our liver is really important for helping clear out, detox extra estrogen in our body, right? So I was drinking, so that's not, maybe keeping a little extra estrogen around. And then I'm also didn't sleep well. So my cortisol levels are up, right? That's going to exacerbate inflammation in the body. And that's probably what played into me having horrible cramps, which I never have. Like, I don't get PMS because I follow what I practice. But when things come up, then I could look back and be like, okay, what shifts do I get to do? From a business perspective, it's amazing to check in with your womb, because you'll just notice when you're feeling more creative, which will likely be in your luteal and ovulation phase. I say to women, I don't have kids and I don't think I want kids. But us women, we get to create whatever we want in our ovulation phase. And this could get real woo-woo, but through our sexual energy, we actually can manifest and create things into our life. So just tapping into where you are in your cycle, you could then apply that to business. Okay, like, I want to sit down and write this book or these new fitness programs. This is a good time to do it. So that's why it's just really good to connect and just with your emotions. Like think of how, I mean, us women, we are more feelers, we're more intuitive. I feel like sometimes, in a lot of cases, actually, I will say, just being in women's circles, we don't get a good chance to express ourselves in a safe space. So this stuff starts to manifest in other ways. And so just really tapping into that and just feeling, just knowing how you're feeling. So those are some ways that I could say. And I know when you really tap into that, it helps so much with how you're feeling energetically, if you are having bad periods. Even women on their fertility journey that I have helped them. And I know you said you're not, concerned about that, but for women that are like, if you're having difficulty getting pregnant, there's that emotional side and just really connecting to yourself that's really powerful.
Well, I actually was on a fertility journey for like 3 or 4 years before I had my daughter. And all of this like menstrual cycle stuff, even though I'm 41 years old, I've only really experienced it fully after my daughter was born. So after she was born, I started having regular periods again. For like 10 years before that, I really didn't. I had no idea when I was ovulating. I really, I would have a period once a year. I mean, it was very just like random and sporadic, and I had no idea what was going on, which is probably why I couldn't get pregnant. So I truly like appreciate this conversation, and I feel like I've gotten more in touch with my feminine side and like my cycle and just really understanding. I feel like I feel all of the phases where, prior to 5 years ago, I never did. So I think it's all like super interesting. As women, we have, what do we have, like 30 years or something of having a menstrual cycle. And a lot of us don't know very much about it, even though it happens to us, every single month for 30 years. So yes, thank you. Thank you very much. I hope I didn't hog other people's time. Andrea and Mandy, do you guys have any more questions?
I don't. Thank you so much. That was really fascinating.
You're very welcome.
This is good information. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Yeah, share with your friends, because I think it's like Rachel said, like women, we weren't taught this. And one thing I did share at the beginning is the reason why I became so passionate about this is because I lost my period for 8 months during my first training for my bikini competition. And I worked in healthcare. I'm also an occupational therapist, and the doctor only had to offer me the pill, which I refused to do. And I was very open about my situation, and even though I wasn't trying to get pregnant, I was like, something in my body speaking to me. And so I wanted to heal myself naturally. And I shared I've shared my situation with a lot of women. I was hearing the same thing, whether it was missing periods or horrible cramps, that they can't go to work, whatever it was. I was hearing kind of the same thing. I feel alone. My doctor only has to offer me the pill or surgery, and I just have no one to talk to. So from then, I was like, I want to be a change to this. And I'm here in Florida right now. I was in California. I'm now here in Florida, and I actually want to, it could be a challenge because they don't want us to talk about periods in school anymore, but I want to try help change the school curriculum so that it could be a healthy, positive way, non-biased, so that these girls, our daughters or your daughters or granddaughters, whatever, that could actually understand their cycles and, not have these issues with their periods and later in life when they want to have children, so they actually understand when they're fertile.
How can people get the womb journal?
It's on Amazon. So it's called the Womb Wisdom Journal. And hold on, I'll grab it right here, just so you know what it looks like. Okay. I got a copy right in my thing. So here, actually, if anyone is interested, I have a handful here. I'm happy to like send them out because they are made to order. So it usually takes about 2 weeks, but I have a handful always on stock at home. So if I need to like send some out, but yeah, this is it. And so you could kind of see this. So this is like kind of what a typical day is, just of journaling. And then every day has quotes. All quotes are by famous women, and it's kind of like your mantra of the day. And I intentionally positioned your mantra to go with the energy of your cycle. So I know, like, there's one day for your luteal phase. It's like, you don't have to be superwoman every day. Like, that's a sign that you get to sit down and relax and, take a pause on your workout. If you have children, if you have someone that could babysit them for 2 hours and you get to go get your nails done or go for a massage, do it. I always say to my clients, you're not being selfish, because you're going to show up more powerfully, more present for your children later. So this is ovulation phase. So then there's specific questions to go with the energy of how you'd be shifting into that phase. And I know I didn't go too much into the energetic sides, but like I said, there is like full reading in the front, just so you could kind of understand the energies of that. So feel free to reach out to me. Kim Bilyk _ my Instagram. And then you could get that on here. Also, I can maybe give you the information. I do have a program called, it's online, do it on your own, online. It's a 1-month program. It's called Hormone Harmony. So I have recipes for each phase of the cycle, a handful of recipes. I talk a little bit more about the energies, and I have lifestyle practices to also support you. I say it's so it takes you through your whole cycle, how we were talking today about cycle syncing more for workouts, but I also then do the lifestyles management and stress management practices to also accompany that. And it's 1 month, but you could rinse and repeat, and you could keep doing that. So I also
Will you send me the info for that, and I'll make sure that everyone that I send this recording to has access to your Instagram handle and the journal, and then also your program, so they can check it out.
Yeah, awesome.
Awesome.
Any other questions? No, we're good. Okay, thank you so much for attending today, ladies. Thank you again, Rachel, for having me. I love talking
Thank you
about
so
this.
much.
You're welcome.
You did awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And we'll
Thank you.
chat soon.
All right, see you. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye, you too.
Bye.